Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jason. I am at Smith Park today, and I'm going to be talking with Liz McClain. Liz is somebody who's been on my radar for a while. We've been messaging back and forth for quite a bit to try to get something scheduled. She's somebody who that has been recommended by multiple folks due to her running and her coaching. So here we are. We're here. Thanks for meeting with me.
Thanks for inviting me.
So I guess we'll just get started with all the basics. So where are you from? Are you from around Tennessee? Are you from somewhere else and moved here?
I was born in Palmdale, California, and I went to high school out there. I went to college for 3.5 years at San Diego State, where I first got into fitness. So I was an aerobics instructor. That's what paid my way through college.
Oh, really? That's cool. I remember back in the day the aerobic stuff. Now it's funny because it's still aerobics, but they have like about 20 different names.
Yes. Yeah, this was aerobics. In fact, I was teaching when step aerobics first began. So that was the beginning of Jen Miller and Reebok and step aerobics. That was my starting point.
I got you. I remember that stuff. I remember the step aerobics. So you lived out in California. Is that where you got into running?
I got into running. Oh gosh, I think I got into running. My first race was actually out here in Tennessee, like in 2000 maybe. I ran the half marathon, the Nashville half, the Music City half.
Right, the country music one, right?
Yes, that was my first intro to running, and my sister and I trained for that, and we ran that. That was my first race ever.
First race ever?
Yes.
Was that one. And so what brought you out to Tennessee?
We moved out here. My sister and I moved out here. She is 2 years younger than I. We moved out here with, actually part of our church moved out here. So we decided, we were young, we had nothing else like keeping us in California, and we had each other, so it was like the coolest thing.
Cool.
We had a TV, a car, and our clothes. That's all.
Hey, that's a good start though, right? All right, so you said the country music was your half. So what was the draw to get in the running from the aerobics?
I wanted something harder. I wanted something challenging. I wanted something that was also going to keep me physically fit. And that was when I moved out here, I did not teach aerobics anymore. So I needed something that was going to be mine, that I could stay fit, and I chose the half marathon. Never thinking I'd do more than that.
Gotcha.
That was where I started.
So you did that. How did it go?
I think I finished in 2 hours.
That's strong.
Yeah.
For a first half marathon.
Yeah.
My first half marathon was 2.5.
Yeah, no, 2 hours. We trained hard, and I was a lot younger, so that definitely makes a difference. I did try eventually to train hard like 10 years later and run a fast half, and I think I got the same time. I mean, it was hard. That's a hard event to run fast for me.
That course in particular is hard.
Yeah, it is hard.
Now, if you're looking for a fast half course, the one in Murfreesboro, the one I'm pacing next week at, it's all flat.
Yeah.
And super fast. I mean, we have guys that go out there, some track guys from MTSU that were running like 107.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I have friends, super fast friends, who have ran it 120, 125.
Yeah, that's fast.
But it's super flat though. There's no hills, none. I mean, I think
I prefer something unflat. That I am never drawn to a race that's flat. It to me is harder than mountain climbing.
Right, because you're using the same muscles over and over.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't know if I could do one successfully.
It's definitely a different bear, that flat.
It is.
That flat running. So you did the half.
Yes.
So from there, did you move to the marathon?
Yes. Then I decided I wanted to do the marathon, and the year I did the marathon, or the year I trained for the marathon, it was also the year they were predicting tornadoes on that day. So
Is this in Nashville?
Yeah, my very first marathon. I was already nervous, and then we were getting emails that say, if you can't get to mile 20 by this time, you're getting pulled from the course. So
Right.
that even made me more nervous, and like, there's no way I can do it. And I ended up getting pulled from the course after like mile 20, which was fine, but I knew, and my husband knew in that moment, we had to find something else soon so that I could finish a marathon. I couldn't leave it undone. So he suggested we go to San Diego, where I have family and, you know, kind of where I went to school. So he said, let's fly to San Diego and do that marathon. So that was my first complete marathon in San Diego.
San Diego.
And then I decided that would be an annual trip. So for like 4 years, I decided that was my one race a year, San Diego Marathon. And so I finally hired a coach because my time goal was 4:15. And I don't remember the year. This was before 2012 because I didn't start trail racing until 2012. I hired a coach. Her name is Sonia Friend Ewell, and you can Google her. She is, I didn't know this at the time, but she holds the fastest Masters mile record, and I don't even know her time, but Google her name, and her last name is Friend-Ewell, U-H-L, and she was the first person in my life to put so much belief in me and confidence. It was amazing. So that kind of changed my mentality, meeting her and her feeding into me we read the first book she had me read was Magical Running by Bobby McGee, and Bobby McGee is now training Gwen Jorgensen. She has left Nike and she is training she was Olympic triathlete. Anyway, so that was the first book I read. Very powerful mind, like the power of your mind over your physical feelings. That book is all about that, and that's what kind of started me on mantras and setting out for this goal to do 4:15. And I ended up finishing in 4:20, and I was done. I was like, this isn't I'm not a little person. I'm not a skinny person, and I don't care. That's not the issue. But my build, I like to work out. I like to be strong. And my build in the ultra world is more fitting than my build in the marathon world. And unless I chose to lose weight, I don't know at my age if I was going to get any more performance out of it.
I got you.
Personal
I got you.
reflection.
I mean, and it's all about what you're comfortable doing. I mean, I've ran one road marathon, and that was at Rock and Roll.
Yeah.
And I think it was 4:11, maybe it might have been 4:20. I can't remember. Anyway, it was somewhere in the lower fours,
which is good.
But I got done running it, and you know, and it was just not what I had hoped it was going to be. And I've not ran one since. And I know a couple people who've done that, ran one road marathon and been like, that's it, because it's just not, you know, it's one of those things where it's your preference, right?
Right.
And so you got that one done, and when did you learn about ultra running?
I just knew when I finished that I wanted more. I wanted longer. I wanted more distance, because I felt like I finished it and I still had gas in the tank, and I wanted to find something that not 30,000 people were doing. That also was a draw, because that's a lot of people, and I didn't want to do something everyone did. I wanted to do something that the minority did, and as a female, I wanted to do something that I could possibly be competitive at as a female. And so I signed up for Stump Jump. That was my very first trail race.
That seems to be a lot of people's.
Because there was Fleet Feet had a group.
That's exactly what Stacy
yes.
said.
Stacy and I. That's actually, I ran with Stacy, and that's how I met her, was Stump Jump.
Excellent. So you picked Stump Jump, which which I talked with Stacy, and I think everybody's heard me say this 1,000 times. That's not an easy race.
No, and I don't necessarily want to do it again. I don't like repeating races.
And so you did stump jump. You
Yes.
were obviously successful.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting, before we move on to finish talking about stump jump, is you made a good point about being a female and being competitive. And you think about ultra running, and let's face it, you have runners like Courtney DeWalter who can come in and just place in the top.
Right.
And
Top 10.
Top 10
men and
easily,
women.
easily. And on top of that, win races. I mean,
Yeah.
she won the
Outright.
200 outright, and then she won the backyard race against Harvey Lewis at Laz's race. And then an interesting story, my 100 miler last week, the overall winner was a female.
Who was it?
Her name was Amy. I can't remember what her last name was, but she ran it in like 15 hours.
Wow. That's
It was her
pretty
fifth
amazing.
100. She had DNF'd all of them,
Wow.
and on her fifth one was her first one, and she won it outright. And
Wow.
15 hours is a stout time
Oh yeah.
for a
That's
100
amazing.
mile. I mean, and she beat the second place. She beat the male by, I think, I'm at 15-20 minutes.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So back to your story, you did stump jump, and then after stump jump, was it more of like picking races that like Fleet Feet was doing it, or was it, were you looking at like what your friends were doing, or what?
It was Fleet Feet, because this was my first taste in the community, and I didn't even know such a community existed. So my second, but I did feel like, there was also in that community like, well, you can't go from this to this, and I'm like, if I want to run 50 miles next, I can.
Right.
So my second race, I think, was Lake Martin 50, and a lot of Fleet Feet people did that one also. They also had a 50K and a 100 mile, but that was I think my first 50 mile, and then I wanted to keep progressing to 100K, and I did 100K, and then so I would still aim for like one race a year was my goal, maybe one 50 mile and 150K, but that was kind of my limit physically when I started, because it was hard. It was easier on my body though to run a 50K, even a 50 mile, than it was to run a road marathon. Like, no comparison on the way my body responded.
Yeah, it's funny that it's like that, because I've hit the 50 distance multiple times. In 3 of my DNFs I've went over 50, and it always seems like the first 50 miles seem to be pretty, I don't want to say easy,
No.
but the effort, I can tell you the effort in the 50-mile races seems easier to me than what I felt like running that marathon in Nashville.
Oh gosh, yes. No doubt. No doubt.
And I think it's just some people's pedigree, what your body likes.
Right.
It sounds like you're similar to me, and your body has that rhythm.
Oh,
that 50 mile-ish
I like it.
rhythm, and so looking at some of your, and you've done some tough stuff. I mean, I was looking at your ultra sign up. You've done you ran Georgia Death Race,
3 times. So you run it. That is one I will repeat, because you do it 5 times and you get a jacket. So I am racing for the jacket, even though you can probably get it on eBay. I want to win. I want to get that race. So I'm on the wait list this year. But I'll get in. Anyway, so this will be my 4th year doing it.
And that's so. I believe this year he's back to it being a Western States qualifier.
Yes.
So have you applied for Western States?
Not even on my radar. I don't want to do it. I don't care. I want to do things that are like ridiculously, I'd rather do ridiculously hard than Western States. Not saying that it's not hard, but I don't want to do Boston. I don't want to do the things everyone does.
Right. Well,
it's not appealing to me.
Well, and I think, Georgia Death Race, a lot of people who I know have ran it, compares it to a 100-miler.
Yeah, I would say the feel of it, for sure, because of the climbing, definitely compares to a 100-miler. Yes.
So you were successful at that, at your first stab, right?
Yes. And, you know, I'm trying to think. I can't even think back. Oh, it was terrible because it torrential rained, and my rain jacket was not sufficient. So I ended up probably the last 3 miles of the race running with my space blanket. But I had banked so much time, I was fine. Like I didn't have a doubt I would finish.
Right. So you literally could just coast on it.
Yeah, it was fun, and I had, you know, good attitude makes a big difference. So yeah.
And so that race. So I guess in talking with you, and we've texted a lot just over back and forth. It seems like you're very methodical in how you go about preparing. At least from the standpoint, it seems like you think a lot through with your training and whatnot. So how did you prepare for like GDR? So what did you know? Because it seems like to me, you definitely have like a plan of attack. And so like, what did that look like for you?
Well, the other thing is to date, not saying that as I age, because I'll be 50 in December, but to date, I also don't like poles. I want to do something, like I don't want to have I'm not saying it's a crutch, but I am saying it's a crutch. I guess I'm challenging people saying that, but I wanted to, even, like, you can't use poles at GDR.
Right.
But it would be very helpful.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
But they don't let you use them. And the 100-milers that I've done, I can't even remember if they said no to poles. I don't remember, but I've not used poles yet. I mean, I may, who knows? But hill running.
So
hill training, hiking up hills. For sure, getting on a treadmill at 15% minimum and hiking for 3 or 4 miles.
Yeah.
In one go.
Yeah.
And now I'm giving away all my trade secrets. And doing that after a long run. Like, if you really want to feel like this is how it's going to feel, do that.
And I've
crazy hard.
And I've heard that's like the best thing to do is to go out and run like 20 miles and then go in there
out here, like where you're already getting hills, and then go and only climb for 3 miles.
And I've heard a lot of people use where we're at right now to do a lot of ultra training.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's very technical out here, and it's smaller than Percy Warner, so the amount of technical and climbing you're getting here, you can repeat a lot here and get more climbing than you would at Percy.
I got you, because Percy's just, it's long.
There's more place to run, which is also good because you need to be on your feet running flat miles, downhill miles, etc. But in like a race like GDR, you got to be able to hike. You got to be able to hike fast. You got to be able to move fast when it's time to, because it's only up or down. There's no straight, so you're never getting a break.
That's what I've heard.
That's the crazy part. And it doesn't seem like much, but it goes up to like, I don't know, 3,000 feet, 3,200 maybe, which is not a lot. But mind you, like, we live at 200, so it's almost like a challenge even to, like, that's a great training race for any races I might have coming after that.
Right.
Because of the little bit of altitude you have.
Right, because you do have to kind of acclimate a little bit to being up high.
Yes.
You know, it'd be like when you're in the Smoky Mountains and whatnot, you have to get used to that rate of being up high in the air. And even though it's not like being in Colorado or anything like to that measure, it's still something. And
again, the hill work. That's gonna closely simulate the difficulty breathing. So that to me for that race is key, just the treadmill and the hill running. And I don't do much speed work for that race.
No, you wouldn't need it really.
No.
So, but I guess when you have a course that has that much climbing, do you normally set like goal, like altitude, like climbing goals for the week? Like, I'm gonna go 10,000 feet this week.
Yes. So, for example, getting ready to train this year for Oregon. Actually, it was Ute 100, which got postponed because of the fires in Utah. It's outside of Moab, like 40 miles outside of Moab.
Right.
I think the highest peak might go to 12.5.
Right.
So for that race, I had 2 key weeks of training. So all my training kind of worked up to, I would have 1 week that was 100 miles total, and then my next week would be a climbing measure. Like, so I would want to climb 18,000 feet in that week. So those are kind of my 2, I guess, physical fitness markers, and I've used that for Mogollon. I did that. I hit those 2 marks, and I felt like it was very helpful. And that was my goal going into Ute, because that would have been probably the highest sustained place I would be. I've done 50K that went up to 12,000 feet, but it's shorter, so you're not up there that long, versus 100 miles, you're up there longer.
So you mentioned the 100-mile distance.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that was harder or easier than GDR?
Oh gosh, they were all so different.
So what was your first 100?
Pine to Palm.
Pine to Palm. Where was that at?
Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in California. So you start, I can't even think of where you start now, but it's Hal Kerner's race.
Uh-huh.
Fantastic race, like for a first time 100. And again, a lot of Fleet Feet people did that one.
I gotcha.
So that was a great first time 100, because everybody is you can do, like, it's very enthusiastic. So you'd have to just get hurt or something not to finish that one, because it's very positive vibes.
And I'm sure that one was a lot more runnable too, right?
It was. It still, I felt like we still accumulated maybe 16,000 feet, maybe more than that total.
But that's what you get in those west.
Oh yeah, and I love them. And Western races are a lot more groomed. Like, so if I'm running out here on technical terrain and it's slowing my down, you go out west and there's no humidity.
Right.
So you train here in the summer, which increases your plasma volume. You're getting all the benefit of the humidity. You go out there and race, it's groomed and there's no humidity. So it's a super good counterbalance, in my opinion, for my body at altitude.
I gotcha.
So I've never had to stop a race because of altitude, and I've ran at altitude in a couple races.
So your hundreds, how and how many have you done? Remind me, because you've
3.
you've done a lot of races.
3 100s.
So which one do you feel was your toughest?
Georgia Jewel.
The Jewel?
It was horrible because it was humid. That's the worst part. There was so much humidity in that race. It was terrible. And I fell in that race. I hit my head. I was hoping I'd be out of the race because of that. But my crew was like, "Oh no, you're fine."
Here, just put a Band-Aid on it.
Dang it.
Yeah.
I wanted to be out, and that race was just comical. I mean, I'm just getting real. I started my period at mile 90.
Oh no.
I'm like, are you kidding me? And like, it was horrible. But I was the dead last finisher. Dead last.
You were the DFL.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And I was totally proud of that. But that was the hardest mentally for me. Mogollon, I might say on paper, at the time I did the race, there was only 14 women who had ever finished Mogollon.
Mm-hmm.
So I was determined to be 15, 16, whatever.
Right.
That was hard to prepare for, and I prepared I did a lot of marathons in that one to prepare. Normally I don't run that long.
Yeah.
I did probably a marathon every weekend for a month, and then I did my 100-mile week, and then I did my climbing week.
So
that was the hardest one I've ever trained for. Like, in my mind, I'm like, I've got to work harder.
Well, but it's interesting, when you think about the Georgia Jewel, and even though you may have been last,
oh Lord, it was hard.
It's just like Jason Green from the Getty Trail Races says. He said, pretty much in most of these races, that has these belt buckles,
mm-hmm.
the first place person and the last place person gets the same thing.
Yeah.
So what's it matter?
Well, yeah.
And
at that point, I didn't care.
And it sounds like you had faced so much adversity, and you'd pulled yourself out of it.
Yeah.
So.
And I had a good friend that was the sweeper, and I said, "Don't even run in front of me." Jenny Kelly from Chattanooga.
Yeah. She's the race director, right?
Yeah, for Stump Jump.
Stump Jump, and she also...
There's another Jenny that does Georgia Jewel.
The Georgia Jewel, right. But Jenny Kelly, she does a lot of the Rock Creek races.
Yes.
So like Rabid Raccoon.
Yes, she's taken over a lot of
okay.
those.
She's the one that I was thinking of, because she's the one that...
She's amazing.
Yes, she's a great race director. Well, and so, you know, it seems like to me, based off of what we're talking about, and you kind of follow the pedigree of a lot of the people that I interview, as you guys all tend to chase after these hard races. So you like just put that so you like look at it and you're like, how hard can...
Keep going.
How hard can I push myself? Is that kind of your mentality?
Yeah, and this is totally backing up, and I don't even know on the timeline where this fits. I think it was before I did Pine to Palm, but Rock Creek had an invite-only female running camp, but they chose who they invited from the South, so I somehow got invited to that.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is kind of what continued to spur me on. And I literally met people at that I still talk to, like amazing female runners, like that group of female runners, because they were trying to break women at the time into running more.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't really, you know, some didn't feel safe, some didn't want to do it, didn't like the challenge. So this Rock Creek Trail thing was amazing. So that kind of spurred me to go, there has to be more, and I want to try something harder. So that was when I first signed up for a 100-miler.
Oh, I see.
But I can't remember the timing. I don't remember the date.
Well, and I think it's cool though how listen to you, how you progressed and push yourself toward these hard, the hard stuff, and getting out there and testing your limits and being able to hit your limits and still push past them and get finishes, mm-hmm. like at the Jewel.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of people aren't able to get through adversity. I mean, you're looking at one here, I for some odd reason, I struggle with it. From, once I get to a point, I can get so far, and then it seems like I hit my limit, and I've not figured out how you were able to push yourself past that limit. And I think that's something that that's really, you kind of have to learn how to do, and I think it's really great. So staying on your racing for right now, I know you haven't been able to do a lot this year because of all the...
I haven't, but oddly enough, so last year GDR got postponed a couple times, and I can't remember if it was November or October when they finally held it, but since October of 2020 I did 3 races before the end of the year, which is unusual for me, and then the following year I did GDR again, so I in essence got to do GDR in 6 months twice.
That's cool.
And then I did, so that was easy to get, like the second railroad spike. I mean, the third railroad spike. And then I did another race. My brain's like fogged up. I did another race after that. So that is the most racing, honestly, that I've ever done in 8 months. Usually I don't do that much racing. So I was surprised that my body held up.
Well, but on the flip side of that, your body was kind of in a groove to some extent.
Yeah,
I mean, it was kind of already built into the, to the mode, because when I got into ultra racing, I did 3 in 3 months, and
that's a lot.
And I think it helped me.
Oh,
I did a 50K, a 40-miler, and then a 50-miler all back-to-back months, and I felt like, and it's going to sound silly, but I used one race to train for another, because I was so young and new into it. I just wanted to finish them, right? And so I was like, so I used the 30-miler, and this is going to sound funny, but then after that I kind of tapered into the 40-miler.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then from the 40 miler, I kind of tapered into the 50 miler, and
That's normal.
And I had success in all three, and it was something that at the time it seemed like a good idea, and it worked really well for me, I think. And it sounds like it worked well for you because you cruised. It sounded like you cruised through all of them. So
it was difficult, but yeah, I was surprised.
So what's next running for you?
Well, because Zane Grey has been also on my radar for years, and Zane Grey is described as the hardest 100K in the U.S. That is in Arizona. It's on the AT, the Arizona Trail.
Mm-hmm.
That is also part of Mogollon. So 30 miles of that race is going to be the same 30 miles that I've done at Mogollon, which is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a good preview for me, but that is another challenge that it keeps getting postponed because of COVID and fires. So fingers crossed, that's April this year.
Okay.
And then I have GDR, hopefully if I get off the wait list, in March.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have Ute 100 in August. And then this will be a stretch this year for me. I will have, if I choose to, Oregon Cascades 100 in September. So I'm just going to see how that goes.
Right.
I'm not worried about the first three. It's doing a 100 miler and then doing a 100 miler 3 weeks later. I'd love to do it, but I don't.
Right.
You
You just
I
have
need
to see how your body. Right. You have to see how your body.
Yes.
Body is.
And I love my trainer. I have a trainer that I work with twice a week, and he's amazing. And he has kept me very healthy, and we'll just go with that too. Like what he sees as, this is how we're going to work this time or this go around. And he knows the difficulty of the races, and I think he works my training into my crazy running weeks, and I'm still able to do both and see gains.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And that's really important too, I
Mm-hmm.
think. So I guess, and I guess this is a good segue a little bit. So you talking about your trainer, you do some coaching as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess before we get into your coaching, when it comes to your training and your races and whatnot, do you have one thing that is kind of like your Achilles heel that you have to focus on, like whether it be nutrition or sleep deprivation or anything like that? You're just easy peasy.
I am like a baby, and I take a nap every day. I think it's vital to just be still and be quiet and recover. And I also probably run right now I'm not training for anything, but I already run 60 miles this week, so wow. I'll run 10 more tomorrow. I like the 70 is good, but that's not training. So if I'm training, I'm not running 10 miles a day. I'm running maybe 8 miles a day till I'm doing my weekends. And then on my weekends, on my long runs, I'm focusing on repeating hills and difficult things. So right now, this is kind of my happy space.
Mm-hmm.
I can train 2 days a week and I can run 70 miles. And my body's can tolerate that.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So,
but it's been years doing this. I will tell you, I could not go into ultra running and even anticipate the miles I'm running now. It was definitely for me, maybe as a female, maybe just as me. Almost took me, after my first 100K, I was beat up. Like I thought, this is hard. Not any more beat up than road, but like, there's no way I could run a 50K next week. But after my first 100, felt totally different.
Right.
So I don't know if it's just another year of running under my belt, or I did calm down, meaning when I first started trail running, I had to have this gel and that gel and this food every hour. This is when, and it was it sucked the running out of everything. So I have since almost done the opposite now. I try to only eat at the aid stations. I do bring gels because emergencies happen.
Right, in case you need it.
An aid station could be an hour apart technically, but then if you're not feeling good, it could be 3. So you may need food.
Right.
So now I have emergency items, but I try to keep it as simple as possible. And I try and control as much as I can. to where I can have fun.
Yeah.
Like, it's not fun when I have to be only eating certain foods, or I feel like if I dare take an M&M, it's going to throw off my race.
Right.
Like, that to me is not fun.
Yeah, I can see that. That makes sense. So
as I've run more, I've actually kind of stripped away a lot.
Right. So you've learned that it's simplifying is the best way.
Yeah. I don't have to only drink Scratch. I don't have to only have Tailwind. You can chill out and be calm and have fun and drink Gatorade.
Yeah, and it's funny because, you know, in talking with Jason Lloyd, in his experience at Leadville, he's very simple too.
Yeah.
And obviously it works for him because he's had, he's been very successful.
Oh, yeah, he did GDR.
And he did GDR. He's in Pinhoti and all sorts of stuff. So really one of the cool things I heard about you is the coaching and stuff. And so, Stacy talks about how, you help her with her training and her plans and whatnot. So what got you into wanting to work with, like, coaching and doing that stuff and helping people?
So truly it was Sonia, my very first coach. I mean, she believed in me so much, and the amount of belief she fed me caused me to respond in a certain way. So she had a track group, and she let me sub for her. I don't know why. Mm-hmm. I don't know if she saw something in me, but she would have me actually do her track group. And that was a privilege, to think that this woman, she lives in Florida now, but please Google her. She's amazing. But to think that she had enough belief in me, and then when I started doing it, it's so much about attitude. And any person listening to this podcast can run 100 miles. Any person. I mean, truly the question is, do you want to? If you don't want to, you're never going to do it. There's nothing I can do to make you. You have to decide. Like, there's no wow, Jason did that, Liz did that. No, You could do it, but you've got to want to do it, and it's not going to be easy, and it's going to be time consuming. And I think that's the reality I want to bring. And I'm very pro female, like, because out of males and females, the more negative I hear is females. I could never do that. I can't do. But it's not true. You can do it.
Right. And it's interesting you say that, because now we've seen such a huge jump in ultra running with females. Mm-hmm. Over the past few years, you've seen more females have gotten into it, and I think a testament to that has been some of the strong female runners who have just kind of came out of the woodwork. And has really just kind of burst onto the scene and shown that, hey, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing about it is Courtney DeWalter, who is arguably top 1 or 2 female ultra runners probably in the world.
Right.
She just looks like just a person you see at the grocery store.
She's not wearing Lululemon.
Right. She's wearing some
right.
some Solomon basketball shorts, right? And however, you put her on a trail, and she can easily decimate a good portion of the male field. I mean, look at what she did at UTMB.
Yeah.
I mean, just amazing, and I think that's cool. And so you started, doing this. Like, how do you go about writing your plans? Do you customize it? I guess you basically talk to people and figure out kind of where their skill set is and base it off of that, and just kind of go from there.
So I started with the track group. So I had track group, and I do still. I don't have time to run track in the mornings anymore, but we had a pretty good group that I would write track plans for like 3 months at a time, and I still do that for them. So that's kind of where I started. Honestly, when someone comes to me and says, I want to run an ultra, my first question is time. Like, how much time do you have? because then you got to see, okay, depending on the amount of time they have, is really how much training you can put into them and how their goal matches their time.
Right.
I only have 3 hours a week. Okay. But that's not going to accomplish the goal you want. So it's almost like bringing a reality to this is a reasonable amount of time you need to know that you're going to want to put in if this is your goal.
Mm-hmm.
If your goal is finishing, we can scale that back.
Right.
And it's doable.
Right.
Whether we do this amount of time or this amount of time, but minimum, that's kind of where I start. Like, this is what we're talking about,
right.
time-wise.
That
like,
makes
do
sense.
you have that much time? Because some people don't understand. You're on the road. Your road pace is different than your trail pace.
Right.
So it's going to take you longer to run a trail race than it will a road race, not because you're bad, but because there's rocks, uphills. I mean, there's way more challenging things in a trail race than there is a flat road race where you're just moving forward mostly, not side to side or up or down. So it's time. Time is important.
And that's something that,
especially for women, because I'm not to interrupt you or say men have more time, but more often than not, the female I'm training has children. So that brings, again, you can't ignore your kids. And there was a time period I could not have done 100 milers.
right.
Because my children were all little.
Mm-hmm.
So it does, I'm kind of in a prime time for my running time right now, being almost 50, because my kids are a little more self-sufficient.
Right, absolutely. And I can relate to that because I have joint custody of my kids, but I'm fortunate because they're all pretty much all grown.
Mm-hmm.
I have like 16-year-olds.
Yeah.
And so, when you get to that point, they have a car.
Yeah.
They can drive back and forth. Yeah. You're not having to drive them to practice, cheerleading practice, or choir practice, or band practice, or whatever they got going on. It's much easier to get off work and just go run.
Right.
Instead of having to get off work, drive to wherever you got to go take them.
Right.
Sit there, wait for them, and then try to squeeze in a run later on.
Right.
But and I guess when you look at training for an ultra too, do you focus on mileage or do you focus on like time? Because time.
Or I'm sorry, no, mileage. I am not a time. When I first learned, it was time. That's how Fleet Feet did their program. But that to me was not, and this is just my brain, it wasn't reality. Because I wanted to get 20 miles done, but if it said 3 hours, at the time I couldn't run 20 miles in 3 hours.
Right.
So that I already let myself down. So I have a high standard for myself. So I'm like, I don't care how long it takes. I want to run 20 miles. So time I don't use. I personally like using mileage.
Mileage, yeah. And I think it's and I know for me this time around training for the Yeti, I split it off.
Mm-hmm.
There were days where I used time, and then there were days I used miles, because I was looking to accomplish both, and I kind of integrated both of them in. Because I have a friend, John Horner, who is he's training to run. I want to butcher the name, and I want to hear about it after this interview. I think it's River Gorge in West Virginia. Anyway, but he's currently, his coach is Aaron Saft.
Okay.
And Aaron Saft, his plan, he has John focusing a lot on time. And so when I was training for the Yeti, John talked to me a lot about what Aaron was telling him about using time, and that's what he's been using. And I'll be interested to see what his results are going to be like, because he's been training under Aaron now for this 100 miler, and of course he finished it last year, but I think he's wanting a faster time.
Sure.
And so he's got a coach with him this time that's assisting him. And I'm like you, I'm kind of in the same school of thought sometimes. If you say go out, like,
it's not realistic to me for the race.
Right.
So I need to know I can cover 20 miles in this amount of time. So when I'm figuring my race, that's more accurate than time. Now, if it was a new runner, never done it in their life, then I think I would have time as a component, because it's important to understand how it feels.
Right. Oh yeah.
But I think as an advanced runner, I prefer miles because it corresponds to the race. You're running miles, you're not running times.
Right.
So that, to me, it just, I know what to expect.
Right, and I guess if you're running a timed event, then that might be something.
Yeah, maybe.
But
and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it.
No, and I think it's just different for everybody. I think that's the great thing about training is everybody uses different stuff, and different things work for different people. So, and I think that's what's so cool. So, I guess before we close things up, what would be your top suggestion or suggestions for somebody who's never ran an ultra marathon? What would be your top 3 tips?
Oh gosh.
Or top tip. You don't have to.
You should have asked me this before. I mean, I'm just going to tell you what's flying off the top of my head. I would say a group. I would say get a group. I would say maybe it doesn't have to be an organized group of runners, but find somebody you're going to be at the race with. Like, so usually, like GDR last year, there was a group of us running it. GDR the year before, there was a group of us running it. So you get opportunities to train together if you like that, but then you have opportunities to be by yourself if you don't like being with people.
Right.
So I would say definitely find a race. Find a race, first of all, that interests you. I have no desire to do Georgia Jewel. Jenny Baker's amazing. That race just nearly killed me. But I will, in a heartbeat, go out west and do something that's like 20,000 feet of climbing. Like that draws me. So find a race that you're like excited to see where you're going to be at. And usually out west, you're up so high in the mountains, there's no light, the stars are totally different. There's so much about running that is different out west. So I love it. That's my favorite thing. So find a group. Definitely find one you're interested in, because if you're not interested in running it, it's going to be easier to quit.
Right.
And the other thing someone once told me was, when you feel like you want to quit and you're at an aid station and you make that snap decision, don't let yourself quit to the next one. So always force yourself to move to the next aid station and decide then. Don't decide in the moment, because your feelings will change. I always cry at mile 35. I always cry. I don't know why. I feel like, why did I do this? But then it changes.
Right. Yeah.
And I know that about myself. Remember, you cry every time at 35, so just keep moving. Like, anyway.
That makes tons of sense. Well, and I think those are great tips. And this is and I think that this is, again, I say it almost every interview, and this is why I love interviewing different runners.
Yeah.
Because you guys are all so different.
Yes.
And this is why I do it. When I got into doing these interviews, it wasn't because I was looking to, build this humongous YouTube channel and following. I got into it because I wanted to meet runners, and I wanted to bring their stories out to where people could see them. And I've gotten to hear so many great stories and hear all the cool things that all you guys do. And I really appreciate you meeting me out here.
Oh, yeah.
Lord, we've been trying to do this now for weeks, and it seems like between my race and my schedule's been the problem, by the way. Finally was able to make this work today. So again, thank you so much for meeting me out here. That's it for this interview. Like I said before, my next one hopefully will be Rob Apple. He is again ran over 900 ultra races. 900.
Oh my gosh.
OG ultra runner from Murfreesboro in my backyard.
Wow.
So I'm going to hopefully get to have him actually at my studio, hopefully. So anyway, that's hopefully to be my next interview, and then I got several others I'm working on in the pipeline for now.
And I will give you several, because Nashville, our area has a lot of amazing runners.
Oh, I know.
A lot of amazing runners.
And it's interesting. I keep finding about more after talking to more people.
Yes,
so
amazing runners.
Oh, absolutely. So that is it for this week's interview. And thanks again. If you've not given a subscribe to my channel, please do, so you can watch these great interviews and see these people, and give it a like as well. And that is it for now. I will see you on the trail. Thanks again, Liz.
Bye. You're welcome.